Often when you get a formula, it can be quite difficult to work out what exactly it's doing. This is where tracing precedents can be very useful. For example, I've gone back to the ampersand sheet and I'm sitting on the formula in D10. If I want to trace the various cells that create this result, I'll go to the Formulas tab in the ribbon. On the Formulas tab, you'll then find a group called Formula Auditing, and there's a button called Trace Precedents. If I click the Trace Precedents button, it points with the use of lines at the various cells that give me this answer. And I can remove the arrows using the Remove Arrows button. If I find another formula or function to sit on, I can trace the precedents. For example, let's go to second VLOOKUP. If I'm sitting on B8, which contains a function, and I want to trace what precedes that function, I can again hit the Trace Precedents button, and it demonstrates that that cell and that range gives me this answer, and remove the arrows. And just for a third and final example, if I went to the Count Ifs sheet and I sat on B16 and I wanted to trace the cells that preceded this result, I would trace precedents, and with the use of arrows again, these are the cells that give me this answer. So tracing precedents is when you're sitting on a formula and function and you want to point at the various cells that give you an answer, and remove the arrows. Trace Dependence is also a very good button, but for this button to work, you have to be sitting on a value, not a formula. So let's go back to the sheet called Second VLOOKUP. And I might decide to myself, if I was to change large sprocket in G7, what would be affected? So I sit on G7 and I trace what depends on that value. And with the use of arrows, I get a startling surprise, which basically says if you change that value in G7, you will affect all of the following. And I remove the arrows.